Good evening and welcome. Today I'm making a bread which I have not made before, which is a sourdough spelt bread. So, as you know, spelt is an ancient grain quite frequently used in Roman times, went out of fashion, is coming back into fashion, not very frequently used bread, which is unfortunate because it is a lovely flour to have. The flour is much healthier than normal bread. The gluten is a bit less than normal bread. It's not suitable for patients with celiac disease. However, it is much healthier for our gut. The absorption is much better. I made spelt bread before, which I've uploaded in my videos in the past, and I made sourdough many times before. However, I have not combined sourdough with the spelt flour, and that is what I'm hoping to do today. Now, this recipe is going to make one large loaf. It will take about between 15 and 20 hours to do. That is my sourdough starter. Now, I've had this for 7 months. I had this, somebody gave it to me, the starter kit for Christmas, and I've been maturing it since then. I use it, must have used it about 8 or 10 times the last 7 months, making different types of sourdoughs. Last time I used it was about a month ago. I still feed my starter once a week. Occasionally I miss once a week, but it is a very mature starter. So it is a very potent starter, and I like the kit that I used. So let's bake. I have taken 500 grams of spelt white flour. Into it, I'm going to add 10 grams of salt. I have taken about 200 grams of my sourdough mix or sourdough starter from my sourdough jar over there. And as you can see, my starter is very liquidy. So I probably will not need so much water as for normal baking. So I'm going to pour that in there. How much sourdough starter you need depends on the strength and the potency of your sourdough starter. If your sourdough starter is quite potent, then you don't need to use too much of it. Hence, I'm using just under half the amount of the flour I'm using. So I'm going to leave it perhaps overnight to rise to proof for the first time, which should give it plenty of time to rise. I think with the sourdough, the yogurt goes quite well. So I've got a pot of yogurt and I'm going to put 2 tablespoonfuls of yogurt in there as well. And I think it complements the taste of sourdough and also the spelt. Going to mix this up into a rough dough. Going to add water slowly. I don't want to make the dough very sticky and very soft. Just enough water in there to pick all the dry flour off the side of the bowl. So as you can see, I picked up all the flour from here. The dough looks a bit rough. It's nice and firm. It's not very runny. I'm going to knead this, and in total I've used just under 200 ml of water. It's just plain tap water. Going to put some olive oil on my worktop. As this is slightly low gluten flour being spelt, the kneading will take about 10 minutes. Need to knead it a bit longer than normal dough. So I've been kneading my dough for almost 10 minutes now, and it looks just right. So you can see it is looking quite nice and silky, slightly soft, but very smooth. Looks lovely. So I washed my bowl already and dried it. Going to put some olive oil in there. There we are. I'm going to put my dough into the olive oil, a lined bowl, and I am going to leave it to prove overnight for about 10 hours. And hopefully with my sourdough starter and bit of yogurt, it will rise at least twice the size it is now. So while my dough is proving overnight, I'm going to refeed my sourdough starter. I've used up 200 grams of sourdough starter. So I got some plain flour there and water, which is dechlorinated water. So I boiled the water in a kettle and I have cooled it down. So I got half and half. So I've got 100 grams of plain flour and I'm going to add 100 grams of water in there and I'm going to mix it up. And I'm going to put this back in the back of my fridge to be used next time. Okay, so I shall see you in the morning, and until then, good night. Good morning. So my dough been rising overnight for 10 hours. So let's have a look. It looks pretty well risen. As you can see, it's about more than twice the size it was last night. So for the next step, going to sprinkle just some ordinary bread flour on my worktop. Tip the dough over. So let's knock all the air out first. I pushed it out into a rough rectangle and going to fold the two sides, top and bottom in. Turn it around towards you. I'm going to start making it into a ball, and that is reasonably easy to do with your hands. Just with the two hands go around until it becomes a nice, firm, smooth ball. So there we are. Okay, I have got a proving basket here lined with cloth. I'm going to heavily dust it again with my flour. Dust this with flour as well. And underneath as well, you can see the rough surface is underneath with the join. And I'm going to leave this in the basket to prove for further about 8 to 10 hours. I'll have a look at it in about 6 hours to see whether it's risen twice the size it is now. If not, then I'll give it another 2 to 4 hours. And I'll put this into a plastic bag. And I shall see you in about 8 hours. Hello again. So I just checked my dough for proving. It's been 6.5 hours, and I think if I leave it for any longer, it will overprove. As you can see, the dough is quite well risen. It's almost 2.5, 3 times what it was, but there's a little bit of wrinkling appearing on the top, which means it is going to overprove if I leave it too long. And then I have to do the second proving again, which means I have to take the air out of the dough and reprove it for another 4 or 5 hours. So this is where we're going to leave it. I'm going to move this dough onto my baking tray, which I have lined with baking paper, non-stick baking paper. My oven is preheated at 200 degrees centigrade. It's a fan oven. If you have a non-fan oven, then make it 220 degrees centigrade. If you have a Fahrenheit oven, that is 425 degrees Fahrenheit, or gas mark 7. So we're going to transfer the dough from the proving basket onto my tray, but we are going to tip it upside down. So the bottom becomes top and the top becomes bottom. A bit of flour on top. And gently going to tip it over without knocking any air out of it. Okay. So there we are. There is our dough. It's looking good. Nice shape. Make it slightly rounder. Sprinkle generous amount of flour on top. Going to make 2 cuts with my serrated knife. Deep cuts. Okay, so that's that. Now this is going to go into my oven, which is preheated, as I said earlier, for exactly 30 minutes. I'll check it at 30 minutes. If it sounds hollow and the color is good, then I'll take it out. If it still need a few more minutes, then I'll leave it in there for another 5 minutes or so. But hopefully 30 minutes should be enough. So my bread been baking for exactly half an hour. Let's switch the oven off and take the bread out, see what it looks like. Looks pretty good. Yeah, it looks nice. Let's do the tap test. Taps nice and hollow. Nice. So I'm going to leave it on my wire rack for half an hour, and then we will cut it and have a taste of it, and I will give you my honest opinion what it tastes like. As I said before, I have not baked this bread before, which is sourdough spelt bread, and I'll tell you what it tastes like. See you in about half an hour. So let's taste the bread. It's quite cool now. Crust is quite nice. I like the edge. Nice open texture. Yeah, it's nice. The bread tastes very nice. The texture is lovely, very, very light. Normal spelt bread tastes quite nutty. This is not nutty, this is more soury because of sour bread and also because of the yogurt in it. It hasn't got the same depth of smell, the lovely smell you get from the bread, from normal bread flour. This hasn't got that smell. The smell is very subtle. It's more sour smelling bread, but taste is gorgeous, I think. Almost tastes like an Italian bread, so I think it probably go very well with a dip of balsamic vinegar and olive oil. So I'll try it for lunch tomorrow. Thank you for watching, and until next time, see you soon.